Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back with another recording of Hearthstone. Today is May 23rd, Wednesday. We're going through the news, kind of slow. We need to get one more Druid or Rogue victory and then think about at the very least doing this one or getting halfway through with that one. So we've been playing Druid, let's play Tempo Rogue. It's time to play casual because I want these victories, and looking at 4 victories is too much on ranked. Sure, I'd love to play ranked and try and get up higher, but it's just not happening. And remember, these decks that we've been playing are the decks recommended to me by hsreplay.net. So I'm not even playing things that I normally would play. Maybe I'm not giving it a fair enough shake, honestly, because I'm not learning the strategies and playing the right way, and I'm not paying enough attention to it because I'm covering the news and doing other things. That certainly is, I think, a slightly fair argument to make. But on the other hand, I'm still very much focused around the one and only concept of getting daily quests done. That's all I really care about, is just get the daily quest done and save myself some time. And meanwhile, while we're getting the daily quest done, let's try and get this, get the news done. So TechRaptor has an article: Exceeds 2018 catalog adds 4 more third-party games. Exceed and Marvelous are adding to their 28 catalog by publishing 4 more third-party games, including their first VR titles. The titles range from an action RPG called Toho Game to an alien blasting music game, and all look to broaden Exceed's appeal. There's a lot to sift through, but you can view a brief trailer for each of the games below in one large video. Okay, so let's watch this video. Meanwhile,
here we go.
We have Toho Scarlet Curiosity, which is a decent looking platformer, action adventure, kind of dungeon crawler game, beat 'em up. It's coming to Steam 2018. I like the fast-paced action here in fighting. I like the graphics; they look pretty good, although kind of minimalistic. Next game is Gungrave VR, coming to the PS4 on fall 2018. It looks like a standard VR game where standing around and shooting things. Maybe the graphics are better. Gungrave, I think, is an anime, so it may have a bit of a license there.
Engaging TC-130 mental dislocator.
But
Here we go.
for the most part, I'm not seeing anything amazingly cool here. This VR game, I guess, in one perspective, is a third-person perspective game, which is very weird. The next game is called Gal Metal. That's G-A-L space M-E-T-A-L for the Switch, and it's a bunch of girls, and it looks like one boy in a heavy metal band, and so it definitely to me looks like it is a music game. There have been a few anime stories of Japanese schoolgirls forming a heavy metal band, and their friendship growing or whatever else is going on. And then the third game is called Corpse Party 2 Dead Patients, which I assume is a sequel to Corpse Party 1. It looks a little 2D, a little chibi in the small character type animation style, where you're also walking around some very dark halls, and we saw one small instance where you get attacked, but I think if I was to guess, it's mostly built around walking and avoiding I'm pretty sure it's built around walking and avoiding the zombies, and it's mostly kind of a find the object point and click adventure type thing. Let's see. Corpse Party 1 came out in 1996, and it's an episodic release with a new setting but the same creepy atmosphere that is a hallmark of the Corpse Party series. And then it's talking about the other games. Let's see. Summon this. Do this. And that didn't work. Let's play that, I guess. Gal Metal is a rhythm game, but you're creating your own drum lines and form a band. Interesting.
No more take candles.
Apparently Gal Metal has already come out in Japan and it reviewed positively, sold very poorly. Toho Scarlet Curiosity was released on the PS4 a few years ago. It's now coming to PC. So it's definitely feeling like these are just kind of re-releases of old games. Not anything super interesting, but actual news. Like, let's never forget when we actually get some news. Why? I guess I can play that. Do I want to play that? We could play this again. Do this. And do this. There we go. Next article we have, since that was kind of a bust of an article, just a very simplistic announcement that I could have probably narrowed down to a shorter explanation. Gamasutra has an article, Avalanche forms Malmo Studio to focus on flexible projects. So the Just Cause / Mad Max developer Avalanche, I think it was called Avalanche Studios, opened a new game studio called Malmo, M-A-L-M-O. The new opening will join the company's other offices in New York and Stockholm and will focus on relatively small and flexible projects built around AAA production values. So they're trying to do something like Senua's Sacrifice, Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, I imagine. Remember, this is very weird because Avalanche has announced Rage 2. The suspicion I have, and many have, is that Rage 2 actually was going to be a Mad Max game because there can't be any more Mad Max properties or titles, movies, or anything because the company that owns the rights to Mad Max is suing the creator of Mad Max, or no, vice versa. The creator of Mad Max is suing the company that owns the rights to Mad Max because for unpaid bonuses, and in retaliation the company that owns Mad Max has canceled all Mad Max projects. So knowing that, or at least heavily suspecting that that's the case, the guess here is that Malmo is a solution that was thought of when they got the news that they couldn't make Mad Max 2 as a game. Probably several months, if not years ago. Well, we've got all these employees, we've got to do something with them, we've got to roll them off into an office or something we can blame or shutter, and we don't want to just shutter Avalanche. Normally the solution here would have been for them to shut down Avalanche and say, well, we just can't do that, but we'll shut down the company and we'll move some of the employees to other offices and fire some of the people. Here, instead, they went the extra mile and created a different company and gave them different projects, which is a very nice and I'd say ethical way to try to approach it, assuming this doesn't all end with people getting fired anyways, which is very possibly could. Let's see. Sarah Ponnert, S-A-R-A-P-O-N-N-E-R-T, will lead the Malmo branch. So, in effect, they've given a promotion to somebody as the new studio manager, having previously held down roles as at game publishers Panvision and Sony Ericsson Mobile. She'll now be tasked with building Avalanche's new office from the ground up, starting by helping a core team of senior developers relocate from Stockholm. Which that seems rather odd that they're moving people out of Stockholm, Sweden, to New York. That might be this in a nutshell, actually. If I'm recalling correctly, it might be a little difficult to fire people in Stockholm, Sweden, because they have like employment contracts and unions. But if you move them over to New York instead, which is what they said this was going to be, is New York, right? The new opening will join the company's other offices in New York and Stockholm. Actually, it doesn't say where this new office is going to be. So, I have to click an article to get facts for an article. This is not helpful. I wonder too.
Hey, lights out.
Here we go. Already attacked. Too soon.
So now I'm reading the second article. Sweden. Okay. Malmo is not the name of the studio. Malmo is a city in Sweden. I totally misread that article. So they're moving from Stockholm, Sweden to Malmo, Sweden. That seems like that's a more realistic
Lights out.
Here we go.
move for employees. And in fact, it might just be that some people wanted to move to Malmo in the first place, and maybe there's just cheaper offices in Malmo than Stockholm. Moving on, baseless speculation. This is interesting. This is the first game I've ever seen on Steam that had an emoji as part of its name. So, Pirate Skull and Bones space Dungeons and Hunting. It's a RPG clicker game, early access strategy RPG. Let's see how many achievements it has. None. It supports a ton of languages though, and it looks like it is a garbage collection of assets. I really don't get the idea of making a clicker game without achievements though. Shaman and Warlock time. Custom Shaman. Let's try this. This custom Shaman probably is just full of Shaman cards. And why does a clicker game need to be early access? Why does a clicker game need to be $6.99? It says it's a combination of an RPG and a clicker game. There, let's see. One review in Russian giving it positive reviews. This is literally a nothing of a game. And screenshots are trying to make it look like it's something else. It's from a developer who has made about 10 games, and at best a handful of them have been mixed reviews. But I guess it does earn the distinction of being the first game I've ever seen with an emoji in the name, even though it has a pathetically bland name. Moving on, PC Gamer has an article. Former Wolfenstein / Bulletstorm devs set up a new studio called Neon Giant. So this is multiple devs, but you never really get a great listing of who. Somebody that worked on Wolfenstein, somebody that worked on Bulletstorm, and somebody that worked on Far Cry, and somebody that worked on Doom, and somebody that worked on Gears of War. That literally could be 2 people, or even 1 person. Or it could be 5 people, or it could be 20 people. Let's see. The person, actually they're listing it out here. Person who worked from Wolfenstein to Bulletstorm, then Doom and Gears of War. Game developers Tor Frick, Arcadeberg, Eric Glorson, and Jonathan Heckley have formed a new studio named Neon Giant. So that's like 4 people formed the studio. The thing that's kind of weird about this is I have to assume that the people forming these studios are getting lines of credit or investors. I really doubt that you're paid enough as a video game programmer to save up all of your money and then go form your own studio on that alone.
We have many secrets.
So I imagine they're getting some really loose investments from silent partners and investors who are just there for stocks whenever stocks are available. Let's see. Just there to make profit. Let's see. Yeah, it says, with investor support from Goodbye Kansas, Neon Giant joins the like of Tarhead Studio, Fall Damage, a team founded by ex-DICE employees, and Palindrome Interactive under the former's umbrella. I don't know why you would need to reference a different company. This is one of these. This is a PC Gamer article, right? Yeah, this is literally 4 paragraphs and with 2 sentences per paragraph. Neon Giant, quote, Neon Giant consists of a real dream team that not only have an enormous experience but also have an incredibly efficient working process, says Goodbye Kansas game investor CEO per Arcane Ludenberg. I usually explain that we first and foremost invest in people no matter how promising the game projects in development are. Neon Giant is a perfect example of this, but they coincidentally also have something great in the works. I'm convinced that their first release will be a milestone in Swedish game development. Talking about a lot of Swedish game developers this week, apparently. That. And in the turn. This is a bad way to announce a new company, frankly, with nothing to work to really even tease. If the developers are people who worked on Far Cry 3, which I would say that's the outlier compared to Bulletstorm, Wolfenstein, Doom, and Gears of War, you pretty much know this is going to be a first-person game. It's probably not going to be too much open world, because only Far Cry 3 was a super open world type game, where the rest are very much level based. So maybe Neon Giant will come out with something in 4 years worth looking at, but maybe we'll never hear about them again in our lifetime. So we got somebody finally on the chat. Lemon Lover says you should have your own Rydo emoji for real. At some point, it wouldn't be an emoji because that's an international standards board. But at some point, there would be an emote on Twitch if I got enough followers. But I would also have to hire somebody or try and animate something myself, which that would be a pathetically bad idea, to make that emote. I don't particularly even know what I'd really want to do. Most of my logos and animations, because I don't have an artist, are very bland. So it'd probably just be an R, you know? It'd probably just be like the R from my logo. I certainly kind of struggle with having a YouTube identity as a character because I'm not really a character, and this is pathetic for any YouTuber to ever say this, but I'm really not trying to be anything different than what I really am, and what I really am for the most part is kind of boring, a boring person who's played a lot of video games and at the very least thinks they know a decent amount about video games. So I don't have anything that's like iconic or anything that I'd want, and since I wouldn't immediately want to just steal somebody else's art and make a derivative from that, it's the same issue with the t-shirts and the mugs. It's like, if I had an artist, I'd be fine if they wanted to make t-shirts and mugs, but for the most part I don't have any ideas. I think I'd leave it to fan art. So if people wanted to tweet me fan art, I would definitely keep a collection of that on Twitter and maybe show it off. But like I don't even know what it's about or what it would be. Let's see. If there's anything that I'm most passionate about, it would probably be like an anti-censorship message. So, like some kind of logo or emote trying to evoke that is kind of all I could think of. But yes, if I get tons and tons of followers, which I would need on Twitch if I'm ever going to like try and make my Twitch channel the successful one and get away from YouTube. Like, at some point they would open up and allow me to make custom emotes. Moving on, Gamasutra has a article. Microsoft partnership brings video game event to Special Olympics USA Games. Microsoft is bringing their first ever video game event to the Special Olympics USA Games this July thanks to the ongoing partnership between two organizations. 8 teams will compete in Forza Motorsport 7 at the Xbox Gaming Tournament at the 2018 Special Olympics US Games. I guess they're different Special Olympics because they're saying Special Olympics USA Games every time. The Special Olympic event comes as Microsoft is aimed amid a big push to make video games more accessible. In a weird way, I would say Microsoft has kind of very nicely sidestepped any kind of identity politics garbage with their release of their new, more accessible, what are they called on Xbox? The avatars. Like they've nicely avoided any controversy there. They've nicely avoided many conversations and arguments, and instead they've decided to focus on something that could be considered universally positive or nearly universally positive, which is let's make an accessibility controller. Let's make a big push to make games open and welcoming to everyone. In doing that in the right way, where so many people have said, try to make the argument that video games will be only open and welcoming to everyone after we get rid of all of the horrible like sexist and misogynists and abusive people that are already video game players. And one way attacks the community, one way doesn't. So from that spin-off, it feels like Phil Spencer in particular has taken this accessibility push to heart. I think it's working really well. Now arguably maybe this still is just an attempt to break the trademark or patent of the Nintendo Wii thumbstick, which is one of the devices that they're selling with that accessibility controller, but we'll see. Outside the tournament, Xbox also plans to have public video game space set up during the event where attendees can play Forza Motorsport 7, Minecraft, and Super Lucky's Tale. Seems like this is pretty much just an advertisement around the Forza Motorsport tournament at the Special Olympics, and oddly they're not even directly mentioning that the accessibility controllers will be available for people to use. And even if the accessibility controllers are available to use, it's not like something you can just set up. Like, you're gonna need all those extra little buttons and controllers, so even if Microsoft gives the base unit for $100 to every tournament participant, the participant's still gonna say, okay, I also need this, and this to bump it up to like a $500. In my opinion, would probably be closer to $500 minimum to use that accessibility controller accurately and well. So that'll be interesting to see if that tournament happens and everybody that is playing it is required to use just a controller. Here's the list of changes. Nerfed cards. I don't think it's really even worth turning the nerf cards to dust.
You asked
So
for it.
now that I'm looking at the list of them for the latest nerfs, it certainly is arguable, I suppose, that Hearthstone might be going in the wrong direction. Nerfing cards so soon after another nerf pushes it into this direction where maybe they're fixing things, maybe they're just setting up a new baseline where we get a nerf every 2 or 3 months, or even one every month, and that would be too much. That'd be very irritating. Moving on, we have a game called Quarantine Circular. Let's see, what is this? Adventure Indie Casual. Let's see. The team behind Thomas Alone and Subsurface Circular comes with another experimental short, The Next Mutation in Text-Based Adventure. In the middle of a world-ending pandemic, a group of scientists discover the galaxy has been watching. Interesting. This is funny because this is supposed to be like a text-based adventure, but it's not. There's 3D characters in the background, but I think all you do is read the messages in the middle of the screen. This is quite an experiment, certainly. 20% off for $4.79. This game is short. Even they're saying that. Let's see what the 2 negative versus the 35 positive are.
I don't need any of you.
The first not recommended played for almost 2 hours. If games like Proteus and Dearest are walking simulators, Quarantine Circular is a talking simulator. The problem is that it's not a very good one. In its predecessor, Subsurface Circular, the conversation involved AI units speaking to one another. This made it much easier to overlook stilted and unnatural progressions in the conversation. Robotic dialogue makes sense if it's coming from 2 robots. In Quarantine Circular, the extent to which conversations are railroaded become immersion breaking in that they cannot be ignored. In just the second chapter, I had a human character looping me back to the beginning of a conversation because 2 unrelated points I made, which he had heard twice now, were chosen in the wrong order. But if he hears one sentence for a 3rd time and hears another sentence for a 3rd time, both verbatim, simply in different order, he is not convinced. So yeah, that sounds like that's a not great experience, and frankly I'm not hearing anything in this game that interests me. Oh, the other negative reviews, I think it won't hurt much if I thumb it down. I feel like it's acceptable to do this and add a voice of criticism. I don't know why somebody who played the game for 7.5 hours needs to justify their opinion at all. I went to this with extremely good and positive mood. I had obviously enjoyed Thomas Was Alone and found myself amazed by the QC looks and adored the chance. I guess this is Quarantine Circular. Let's see how much of this article. Wow, it just goes on and on and on and on. Oh my god, I didn't know you could write a review. Did not know you could write a review that was... Gosh, this has to be at least 500 words. At least 500 words of a review. It's a full-on article. Longer than half of the video game articles in the world. That. So, looking at the developer, is it called BitHell Games or BitHell Games? Might be BitHell. Subsurface Circular is positive. Thomas Was Alone. I don't know why people even like Thomas Was Alone, frankly. I've seen this game. It's like this minimalistic platform, Super Meat Boy type game, and feels like it was over advertised. So it'll be interesting to see if maybe this is another one of these developers who's friends with a lot of the video game, mainstream video game reporters, and therefore this new game, Quarantine Circular, gets more publication and exposure than it should. As for me, I'm just gonna close that tab. Speaking of slightly questionable video game reporters' ethics, Patrick Klepek showed back up on Giant Bomb after, frankly, he has not been on Giant Bomb for like 2 years, or maybe he showed up once, or maybe he showed up on the Beast cast and not the Bombcast like maybe a year ago. But he's been pretty absent, and if he's showing back up, I'm wondering if maybe he'll make a comeback. We haven't, well, I guess Ben 2 worked for Whiskey Media, so it wouldn't be unheard of for somebody to leave the company and then come back and then maybe leave the company again. So maybe that's what we will see. Right now, Patrick Klepek is working for Vice.com, which I believe is also where or one of the Vice.coms, maybe not the main website, maybe a spin-off or something. But that is also where another Beastcaster went, which is just kind of goes to show that everybody gets hired and fired specifically based on who you know and how they feel about you in the video game. Well, then basically that is the California and New York world too. Is that it's about who you know. It's not about your skill. It's not about what you're doing. As a slight reminder, Patrick Klepek did a lot of actual journalism, more than most video game journalism. But then he became like a major SJW. His Twitter profile at one point at least said he was super woke, and he just started talking about the same identity politics stuff over and over again. He was one of the originators, I would argue, of the problems that now are plaguing the video games reporting industry. Moving on, a game on Steam called Ream, R-H-E-U-M. I don't know if that's the right way to pronounce that. It says it's an action-adventure indie shoot-'em-up shooter game. What am I supposed to say about this graphics? It's very, very red, very grotesque. Supposed to be fleshy and gross. It really is just a bullet hell shooter, as best as I can tell. I guess I have to watch the trailer because each of these screenshots is not showing me what I need to see for a game that I kind of know is going to be so fast paced. Yeah, it's like a bullet hell shooter that seems like you might be flying through a monster's body or something.
The end is coming!
Something similar to along the lines of that. Well, I know for me, I'm not going to play a bullet hell shooter. This is $2.99. It says 3 playable characters, 2 difficulty modes, endless modes. Have 5 positive reviews. I think I really am going to have to hit a point where I start just saying I cannot accurately form an opinion on some of these games. It's like I just don't know. This does have kind of a Binding of Isaac feel to it, but not, the graphics aren't as good. I think inherently that's the part of this that kills it for me, is that if the graphics were a little bit better, I might consider it. but as it currently sits, it's just not good enough for me to recommend it as a first product from a developer. Next game we have is called Survival Last Day. It is mostly negative with 37% of 24 users giving it a positive review. It's the only game from this developer, 30% off for $2.09. What in the world did this developer do to irritate so many people? It's probably an asset flip, but how would people even find asset flips enough to negative review them? First review is cheap cheap copy of Rust. In fact, I'm sure this is a fraud entry on Steam, is what the review says. Let's just go ahead and hit this. I shouldn't have played this card. That was dumb of me. Next says the next review is not recommended. Let's see, I skipped one recommended review, and then there's not recommended. Here's a short review for not recommended. Saying the game is bad is being too polite. It's a poor man's Rust. Nothing new, no save, no instruction. It's only $1.46 in pounds. I think the developer should double my refund for playing such a bad game. So what's interesting here is that this game tried almost certainly to look like Rust, a popular, well-known game, and instead of that tricking people to buy the game and then that bringing goodwill by the number of sales or bringing money, it has backfired in their face completely because the comparison is just way too much.
I don't
Like,
need any of
compared to Rust, which isn't even much of a game, Survival Last Day is so bad that people are getting refunds and writing bad reviews, to the point where it has some of the lowest review scores that I've seen in a while. If you had put out a game like this that didn't look like Rust, many people would have never even seen it to give it a bad review. But now it's getting buried. To the point where I thought maybe it was getting buried because maybe Jim Sterling or somebody covered it, but I don't see any evidence of that. Next game we have on Steam is called SCALAK, Scalak. It's rated positive, 100% with 12 user reviews. That's a little small, but this seems like a very interesting combination of puzzles. I would call this a one-screen Unity game. The question that'll boil down to is how many puzzles are in this game to make it worth the $1.79 that it's selling for right now with 10% off. And it contains over 90 levels with an ever-evolving game flow. And I think that would explain why this is so positive. Although some of these positive reviews certainly are from people who got the game for free. Well, I'm a sucker for puzzle games, and this is from the same developer for some of the other. Well, apparently it's not from the same developer, but maybe the same publisher. Yeah, same publisher of... Nope. How are you making a bundle with games that you don't develop or publish? Is that something people can do now? Because the game Hook is one of the things in the bundle, and it has a completely different publisher and developer. So apparently what happened there is that somebody made the game Hook and said their personal names were the publisher, and now they've incorporated let's do this. Alright, well, Scalak, S-C-A-L-A-K, a puzzle game. It looks good. If you like puzzle games, I'd recommend it. I kind of recommend everybody try some puzzle games of some sort. Sometimes that's in real life, sometimes it's in video games. There's probably some mobile games you could get for free to test the waters on that. Next game we have is called Ancestors Legacy. Very positive, 90% of 220 user reviews, and it came out May 22nd, so that is there you go, I just ruined their strategy. That's a lot of people to play this game, so there must have been some hype for it first. It says it's a strategy, violent, real-time, tactical, medieval game. It looks a lot like Ages of Empires, although it seems like it may have a little bit of zoom in, so it's not just a directly top-down, it's more of an isometric or over-the-shoulder perspective. Sometimes seems like you could probably zoom in and zoom out. Rated M, 10% off for $40.49. This is a real game from, it looks like, a real company. So it's at 90% positive. It's kind of pointless to read the reviews that are negative, but let's do it anyways. This is one of those games where just because of the strategy aspect of it, it's not something I would play. Let's see. The first not recommended says too much for me to say anything.
Only a fool rejects the Lich King.
The bottom of the review though says, cannot recommend this game at the current price tag. I have more fun with the $10 Age of Empires 1 or 2. The next not recommended says, the presentation is great, maybe minus some of the voice acting. It just doesn't go full Total War or full Halo Wars. So seems like this game is probably not as complicated as several of the other Total War games out there. So Ancestors Legacy seems like it might be maybe too simple for some fans, but it too might be marketed towards newer people to that type of game. The developer that made Ancestors Legacy has made 3 other games, and one of them is the infamous Hatred. Interesting. And then the other is something called IS Defense, where you go against ISIS. Interesting. So the IS Defense is also 100% positive with 11 recent reviews in the last 30 days and 94% in total positive. And it came out April 19th, 2016. Interesting. It's an on-rail shooter. Why not? If I'm going to play Hatred, and if I'm going to play... Even Hatred is mostly positive at 71%, so I think people have figured out what they wanted from this developer. So it becomes rather strange now because they're giving something different.
I told ya so. Jagati killed the bosses.
Yeah, it really makes no sense where Hatred is 70% off for $2.09. IS Defense is $5.99 at no discount. And then Ancestors Legacy is this completely different game that they've probably been working on for 2 years, because it's been 2 years since their last release, where they released Hatred June 1st, 2015, and IS Defense on April 19th, 2016. I suspect either the company was bought out or they took a different direction, or, I mean, this feels like the company was bought out. Because they've gone from releasing $5 games to $40 games, and that is a wild shift in a completely different strategy and style of gameplay.
I wonder.
Let's go ahead and do this and do this. And
I told ya so.
this.
I told ya so.
And this. And then return. PC Gamer has an article. A 500 episode Doctor Who marathon is coming to Twitch. Let's see.
Shields up.
It'll start with the 1963 episode The Unearthly Child, which was, I think, a pretty famous one, but I'm not sure it's the very first one. Let's see. Here's the question though. It says 26 seasons. Does that include any of the new Doctor Who, or is this all just old Doctor Who? Or is it specifically Doctor Who that's was in color? Because I think there was a small amount that was in black and white. Yeah, they're gonna show some black and white ones too.
I told ya so.
I'm not sure how many people are going to be fans of watching black and white or Doctor Who in general on Twitch. That is certainly another thing that is also an issue on Twitch with mine, is that Twitch wants me to auto mod and like host other people, and I have no clue who I'd want to host, if I should, or who I'd want to host. Like, do I host super famous people so maybe it gets me more followers, or do I host super small people, even smaller than my family, out of kindness? Doesn't matter at all. Probably doesn't. Yep, I seriously doubt too many people are going to be watching Doctor Who on Twitch. You could be watching it, frankly, on other services. The Jigsaw puzzle games are continuing to come out on Steam, and it is from the same developer. But again, I'm not going to be the voice of censorship on Valve, because if I do, Valve is going to hear the wrong message and they're going to like censor the wrong things.
Job done.
So I'm just going to ignore things. Gematsu has an article. God Wars: The Complete Legend launches September 4th in North America, August 31st in Europe. It was June 14th in Japan. Let's see, what is God Wars: The Complete Legend? Let's see if we can watch the trailer and figure out what kind of game it is. I'm looking at a animated cutscene, and then now it's jumping to the actual gameplay, and it looks like it's an isometric RPG visual novel type story. I think it's not really a visual novel as much as it's just gonna have some of that old school JRPG stories in it. This, if translated well, might be an interesting game to try and learn more about the Shinto and Buddhist god and mythology. Maybe not, depending on how it's localized. Apparently I've gone long enough to... And I don't know if I really ever want to do this third one. Like, rogue class cards or shaman or warlock now. Or do I move over to the Americas account? Actually, I think I move over to the Americas account because there's still a lot to do. I've got 2 things here, but I suppose I might be alright to wait and even have 3 daily quests tomorrow, because if I start streaming on Friday, as long as it's not incredibly late, around 7 o'clock I guess, for the European account, I won't be bumping into that issue. So yes, this is a good point to wrap up. Again, we're trying to be very consistent on run links. That's it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even more, gift me a game or a gift card on Steam. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.